Before that, there's another story. Harry and Meghan have apparently been officially downgraded.
Saw that.
From the Buckingham Palace website. They used to have 4,000-word individual profiles. They've now vanished and been replaced by shorter 500-word ones next to Prince Andrew.
Yeah. It is extraordinary.
What do you make of that?
I'll tell you what's also extraordinary is why that story was leaked, because obviously somebody from within the PR machine, the self
Well, somebody would have just noticed it. I mean, there are people that check... trust me, there are people in Fleet Street that check royal websites literally by the hour.
You don't think they were briefed?
No.
OK.
No, because there are people who look for royal websites as royal little sort of, nuances.
Ah, yes, but the royal PR machine, knowing that happens, might have done it deliberately.
That's my point,
So Andrew could be right anyway.
My job to be right.
Oh, you see what you mean, that they've changed it at this time?
The royal PR machine hasn't exactly been firing all cylinders lately, has it?
Well, this is the trouble. I mean, the footage that we'll see of William and Kate walking around this farm has already caused lots of people to say, oh, that's definitely not her. So, I mean, it won't make it...
Well, you have the picture of...
but nobody's ever noticed it before, though.
Well, that's what's happening. Go back now.
They have noticed it. There's been a number of cases of Photoshop that were picked up. Famously, one I really remember was Prince William being accused of having had an airbrushed hair transplant in one of his portraits.
Right.
Yes.
There are loads
I don't remember any of these, though.
There's no way that all of these portraits of all the kids and Queen Elizabeth are all looking at the camera at the same time. But this is not a new thing. Queen Elizabeth I's coronation portrait taken by Beaton was supposed to be in Westminster. It wasn't. It was taken Buckingham Palace with a cloth backdrop of Westminster.
You're right.
Image manipulation is nothing new. They
and
just
Cecil
did a
Beaton, exactly.
really bad job of it this time.
Well, that's the trouble. It was awful. And there was no reason to put it down.
But also...
Because it was that awful.
But there was no ill intent. And the key to this is not as though she was deep-sea diving or hang gliding or whatever. She was sitting in a chair and tried to make the photo look as good as possible with the children. It was an appalling Photoshop
failed miserably.
job. And, well, it was... and she didn't have the ring and the leaves were too...
I mean, if she was a politician, which obviously she isn't,
Yeah.
you would be giving her absolutely 7 bells of all sorts of terrible
But
you forgive her because she's not...
I think you should forgive her. And I'll tell you what, we should leave Kate alone. But also, what's interesting is part of the narrative behind all of that. When the photo first came out, it was Prince William who was credited as having taken it. All of a sudden, when people started putting this kill notice, it suddenly became Catherine who had to do the apologies and everything else. So I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes.
Well, she said she was the one that manipulated it, that's why.
Which is probably... and so what? I mean, photos are manipulated all the time. You look at
again,
Sophie
none of that
society.
would matter apart from what went before.
Yes.
It's the whole scenario.
The real question is, did she look as well as that? As I say, she wasn't hang gliding, she's not deep-sea diving, she's not leaping up in the air and doing somersaults. It really is her sitting there with that sort of family. It's an appalling Photoshop job, but it's not the first time in history, as you say. Cecil Beaton used to famously do that.
We'll see whether or not it gets them off the hook. Unfortunately, people are fascinated by this stuff, and it's not going to go away.
Release the photo.
Go away. As she comes back, they shouldn't have to release the photo, and they won't be able to because there won't be a picture with all the kids in it at the same time. Probably that's the problem.
No.
But the story will go away because she'll return to her duties.
Yeah.
Or
I would say as well, a lot of this kind of nastiness has been generated by the ridiculous kind of toing and froing between Harry and Meghan and William and Kate, because there's now 2 teams out there on social media.
And they're all briefing each other.
A bunch of Americans who got rid of their monarchy and are slightly envious of ours, I think.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I said this earlier last week, I think, when I was working in America in the 80s. I mean, some of the stuff that they published in those days in things like the National Enquirer and the Globe and the Weekly World News were just ludicrous. But because it was America and they were supermarket tabloids, people just ate it up and read it and loved it and thought it was all true. Chuck and die, it was always about, it's just ridiculous.
And it sells,
In a weird way, I think it does suggest that there is some kind of, very strong residual soft power in all of this. The fact that friends of mine from all over the world keep getting in touch, being like, what's going on with the Kate photo? I mean, there's nothing else... Certainly, there are very few politicians in the world that command this level of interest.
Yeah, exactly right. So, in a way, it's actually boosted the royal family.
I don't know about that.
I think it has.
It does show that there is an abiding in this institution that we're often told is completely irrelevant in this day and age.
Absolutely right.